Sit back, relax, and join William and Lee on their journey through the strange and mysterious world.
Right, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of Strange and Mysterious World. Tonight we're going to be chatting something a little bit different, but probably hooks up with a few of the podcasts that we have before, where we were talking about the Knights Templar and Freemasonry, that kind of stuff. So we will be not repeating, but we will be bringing up some of that as well in this. Holy Grail, Holy Blood. Fantastic videos that William actually got me to look. They were old videos. 1971, this guy did, his name was Henry Lincoln, and he did 3 movies over a period of 10 years. And it's kind of where the Davinci Code came from. Dan Brown's the author, and it's where he got his ideas. So we'll be covering that. But before we do, obviously, we chatting a little about the Olympic Games. And I know, look, we kind of 3 weeks ahead of where we are now. So when we record, it's pre-recorded. So if I'm talking about the Olympic Games, it's actually because they happened a couple of days ago. Yeah. And it's actually quite fascinating. You see that they've, at the beginning of the Olympic Games, normally you've got, like the torchbearer, the guy that's carrying the torch or the girl that's carrying the torch. Normally it's like this sports person, like a really high sports person. Like Muhammad Ali did it, all these guys that were like really sport heroes. So guess who the torchbearer was this time around?
Kanye Semester.
No, Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg.
I don't think I even know the meaning of the word sport, dude. I think the only sport he does is Zol. He smokes weed, I think, for sport.
Yeah, no, hitting dongs. He's like an Olympic bong hitter. I mean, I don't even think that guy's even seen what a soccer ball looks like.
And then there is this massive backlash, dude, because the opening games, I don't know why they did this, dude. I absolutely don't know why they did this. But the painting by Leonardo da Vinci, Jesus' Last Supper? Dude, these guys had a whole woke Last Supper. They had like gayos as a Last Supper. They had this guy that looked like a girl that was in the middle that was supposed to be Jesus. Dude, there was a massive outcry. There's Oaks, you must check on. It's all over the place. The guys are saying it's like a satanic opening to the games, and Oaks are boycotting. Currently, I think they've got the lowest views that they've ever had on any Olympic Games.
Oh my gosh, where they be holding it? I'm so stupid.
It's in Paris.
I mean,
it's in France, Paris.
Oh, in Paris.
Yeah.
But anyway, so listen, look, there's some good news. A film of mine. I shot a film, a documentary for director Tara Moore. This time it debuted a film, and it won last night. It won Best South African Film at the Durban International Film Festival, which immediately puts it into the acceptance to the Oscars.
So you got a nomination.
So it officially qualifies for the 2025 Oscar race.
Oh, awesome.
Which means obviously every country puts their documentaries forward for the Oscar to go into the Oscars for the best foreign Oscar award.
Mm-hmm.
Like Octopus Teacher, that was a South African film, and the NFVF put it forward because the NFVF has to put it for the National Video Film Foundation. Have to put the films that they think South Africa are worthy enough put forward for the Oscars, and they send them to the Oscars. So, but it costs a shitload of money. It's like $500,000 rand or something ridiculous to get it into the Oscars. So it's qualified for the Oscars. So the NFVF will be putting it forward for the Oscars in 2025.
Oh, that's awesome. All right.
Okay, cool. So should we get into it, dude?
Yeah, all right. So we're going to go back to 1971 with Henry Lincoln and his first movie that came out, which was the Holy Blood, Holy Grail series. A very, very interesting topic. There was a priest back in the 1800s that landed up going to a place in France called Rennes-le-Château. Okay, now this village was run down, dude. This thing was fucked. I don't know. I think as a priest, I think the only time you'd go there is if you did something really bad and they sent you to like the arse end of the world to go and to go and preach, because this place was dilapidated, dude. The church was run down.
But wasn't that what happened? Wasn't that what happened? Like he did. There was something. Was like I also read the book, but I remember that there was something that sent there because there was a problem, or he did something bad, or is it? I can't
No,
actually
I'll be
remember
honest.
now.
In the documentary, it doesn't say. It just says that this that this father, his name was Sanye, he ended up going to this place, this parish, and dude, I think there were like 60 people in the village. There was like 60 people in the village. It's like, did you ever see that Father Ted? Did you ever see that series
No.
Father Ted on TV? Like, dude, it was like that. It's like Craggy Island. There's like 40 people living on the island, and he's got to like preach to all these guys. It was like quite a good comedy. But anyway, so this guy rocks up. This guy rocks up at this place, and he's just thinking, what the? Anyway, he goes to the mayor and he says to the mayor, listen, can I borrow some money? I'd like to redo the church. So the mayor says, yeah, no problem, but you're gonna have to pay it back. But now this guy's got like no means of paying the mayor back. So they start renovating the church, but while he's renovating, he actually finds in a pillar in the church, like there's a hollow pillar, he finds 4 documents, but they apparently were some sort of scriptures from the Bible. Now he realized that there's something wrong, that there's something about these documents, because he could see that some of the letters were down and some were up, and it looked like it wasn't written properly. There was like some sort of code to it that he couldn't quite figure out. So he took it through to Paris. And there was a guy that he knew there that was quite good at ciphers, and he left it with this guy. And obviously he stayed in Paris for a while. He met apparently he met some singer that was pretty well off. He eventually gets his ciphers back. And immediately after he's got the ciphers, he goes through to the Louvre and he purchases 2 paintings. The one from Teniers was a painting with Saint Anthony and Saint Jerome. That was the one painting. And then the other painting was called The Shepherds of Acadia. That was the painting from Towson.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Now, in the document, when he took it for the cipher, I'll actually read you what the cipher says. And this is why he went and bought those things. Shepherdess, no temptation, to which Parson and Teniers hold the key. Peace 681, by the cross of this horse of God, I'll complete the demon guardian at midday, blue apples. That was the cipher that came back to him. And that's why he went to the Louvre and he went and got Parsons' Shepherds of Acadia. And then no temptation, because in Teniers' paintings, there were always temptations, I think, on St. Anthony. Every single picture, there was a temptation. But there was one specific one where there was no temptation. So, and if you look at the bottom of that picture, you can see a shepherdess. So that these 2 pictures match up, and these 2 pictures were the reason why. There's a guy by the name of Nicholas Falke. He was a minister of finance in King Louis' thing. And he actually got a letter from his brother who was in Rome. And he had paid a visit to the painter, Nicholas Parson. And this was back in 1656. And he said, okay, so the letter states the following. He said, he and I, so this is the letter to the brother. So the brother's reading. It says, he and I discuss certain things, which I shall with ease be able to explain to you in detail. Things that will give you, through Parson, advantages which even kings would have great pains to draw from him. And which, according to him, it is possible that nobody else will rediscover in the centuries to come. And what is more, these things that are so difficult to discover that nothing now on this earth can prove for better fortune or its equal. So there was a secret that this guy had that even kings would draw pains from getting. Anyway, so he ended up going back to Rennes-le-Château with these paintings and with this document. And dude, almost immediately, he started spending money left, right, and center. He was living in luxury, from having 0 to all of a sudden having wealth. And now when he was questioned by it from the Catholics, the Catholic priests and stuff that used to come around, and they asked him, but how is it possible that you've got all this money? He just said, oh no, I've got benefactors. People are giving me the money. But as you go on and you listen to the documentary, you find that that's not actually the case. Whatever he found in those pillars, he tried to destroy. So there was a lot of cryptic clues around the church. So there was, in the graveyard, there was graves that actually had these clues on the graves, and he tried to destroy them. He destroyed the gravestones that had the stuff on it so that people couldn't see it.
Yeah, he wiped them clean. Like, he
Yeah.
took all of the writing off of them.
Yeah, he took all the, but the problem is with that is some years before he landed up going there was a guy that actually came around and actually drew the inscriptions of all the graves. So that was never lost.
The person, when you go commission someone to draw the grave, they have the plans for that tombstone. So that when he wiped them off, they just went to the place where they made the tombstones, and they saw there was those. They still saw that there was the markings from the person that, because they keep documents of all the tombstones that were made. They still had the documents of them.
Yeah,
of what is said on those stones.
Yeah, so he obviously didn't realize that. So these guys that were doing the investigation actually managed to find all of that. So now of the 4 documents, only 2 remained. So that old Henry couldn't quite get down to the bottom of it because the 2 missing documents, and he could only go on the 2 that he had. So it only took him to a certain point. With the 2 paintings, with this document, this parchment that he suddenly had riches. Now, this led Henry to think perhaps it had something to do with King Solomon's treasure. Okay, he started having a look at this lines because there was a lot of things pointing to this may be the case. So now, if you go back to when Jerusalem still had King Solomon's temple, I think Jerusalem were invaded by Rome, and they were invaded in 79 AD, I think it was, by the Emperor Titus. And he sacked Jerusalem, and he took King Solomon's treasures. He took all of it. And it's actually still inscriptions on the walls in that they did all of this. Now, I don't know, there was a group called the Visigoths. They were like a group of knights. They then went and sacked Rome. I think it was in 479 AD or something. They went and sacked Rome, and they then took King Solomon's treasure. And these guys, their headquarters were in France. So this stuff came back to France. But they don't know where. No one knows where, because there were 3 different castles and 3 different locations where it could have been. And Rennes-le-Château was one of the places that it could have gone to. Because back in the day, Rennes-le-Château was called Arienda. It wasn't Rennes-le-Château. That came later. Arienda now had a 60,000 strong fort. 60,000 people lived in that fort. So it was quite a major place in the time. So Charles was thinking, all right, this stuff probably ended up coming to this area. But now the thing is, as it goes back and forth and it's trying to figure out who and where, and it becomes quite tedious to carry on. But the idea about it was, his first movie was that this priest ended up going to Rennes-le-Château. He found something at Rennes-le-Château. I mean, he was spending lavishly. And then the servant that used to live with them, I can't remember her name, Maria, somebody like that. She carried on living in the same luxury. And she was supposed to pass the secret on. But she got to a point where she was unable to talk. She got so sick, she was unable to talk, and she passed away. So the secret as to how he got this.
Sorry, can I just jump in there? Because this is such an interesting part of the story, was that, so he had no money, and then he found those 4 documents in that pillar, and all of a sudden he had this extreme amount of wealth, and he went and he built, I mean, he built that huge tower on the property there. There was all these like interesting people, like wealthy aristocrats coming around to his place all the time. He was always wining down people. He redid the whole church. And what was interesting is that he put this demon in the front of the church. Well, actually on the before the door, he wrote in Latin on top of the church. He said, "This place is terrible." That's what he wrote in Latin on top of the entrance to the church. "This place is terrible." Mm-hmm. And then as you walk into the church, he put a freaking demon statue. It was the demon
Asmodeus. It's called Asmodeus.
Asmodeus,
yeah.
Yes, Asmodeus. That like
he's the keeper of Solomon's treasure.
Yes, in Judaism, he's the demon that was the keeper of of Solomon's treasure. So he puts it on the front there, and then he puts all of these like weird like pictures all over that church that had like little interesting nuggets of like this puzzle that you got to put together. But with that Maria, that he had a lifelong servant for like 20 years or something, and she was with him or something. The housekeeper, which was a housekeeper, I don't know if if you got a housekeeper for 20 years and like you're a guy that's supposed to be
more housekeeper.
celibacy, has celibacy, and you got this woman in your house for 20 years. I'm sure he was banging her. I mean, I don't know how, with a normal
Sleeping with her,
human being,
not
I don't know, like having yeah, well, like so anyway, so he's got this like his housekeeper for 20 years, and he told her the secret that he had, and then she ordered a coffin for him, like and 20 days later he was dead. But the thing is, when she ordered the coffin for him, he was absolutely totally healthy. He was a healthy human being when they ordered the coffin was ordered. But and also just before he died, because when he died, everyone was like wondering, okay, how we can get to the bottom of this money, like trace the money, why he's so wealthy. They realized that before he died, he put all the money into Maria's account. And then Maria, when she was about to die, she told somebody, well, no, not before okay, so she got all the money. And then when France all of a sudden they changed their currency, because they said that because they was trying to stop money laundering and a whole bunch of other political things, they changed their currency, and they said that everybody with the old currency, the old notes, have to come and declare it and say how you made this money. So all of her wealth that she got from Sunia, that priest that had given her all the money before he died, she went and she burnt it all because she wasn't willing to go and declare how she made this money. So she was keeping some secret that no one knows. Like, what, I mean, such a secret that she went and burnt her whole entire fortune that she got given, because she would not declare how she made that money, or what the reason of why she has this money. So she burns it all, and then she carried on living in like a very like almost like in poverty for the rest of her life. And before she died, she said to somebody, I forgot who the name of the guy was, but she said she would tell him the secrets of what she knew. And she got some kind of sickness where she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I mean, how's that for like a coincidence, And she couldn't divulge the secret, and she died without the secret getting out. But also, what was also quite interesting is that on Sunia's death, the priest that we're talking about, Sunia, his name is, he also, the priest that came in to give him his like last rites, he left Sunia, like he went in, apparently the witnesses said he went in there, and then when the priest came out,
yeah, he was shaking, he was like white as snow.
Yeah. He was like, he was white as snow, and he was shaking, and he was like, and people were like, geez, what the hell did Sonia tell that guy before he died?
Well, apparently that priest, apparently for 6 months, they say he didn't smile at all. So whatever was told to him by Sonia shocked him like badly.
Yeah, and it's also just so frustrating because like we can only see the two of those documents that he had. The other two have gone somewhere. Like I don't know, whoever in power, when he went to France and gave those documents, the two went missing. And I don't know what, I mean, I feel like he was getting blackmailed to keep his mouth shut and was getting all of this money. But the thing is that, I mean, why don't they just kill him?
Well, look, okay, so here's the thing. So that movie, the first movie ends where he actually finds nothing. Henry finds nothing. There's no conclusion to this whole tale. Then I think it was in 1974, he brings out the next chronicle. And that there he calls the priest, the painter, and the devil. Okay, that was the second chronicle that comes out. Now, that day I still WhatsApped you and I said, that's like a bar joke. Like a priest, a devil, and a painter enter the bar. But anyway, so with that one there, he kind of goes into a little bit more depth because now he's found some other stuff. Now there's a group called the Priory of Sion that he figures out. This comes through in the second chronicle, that the Priory of Sion may have been behind this whole thing. Now he's unsure because with the paintings that he discovered, he realized that there's some sort of geometry on the paintings, and we all know that the paintings in those days, the things that were done by Leonardo da Vinci and all these guys, there was always hidden meanings in the paintings, always, from the hand signals to the places they were pointing to to the backgrounds. There was always some sort of secret in the paintings. So he says, okay, on one of the documents, that something says PS. There's like a P-S, and if you turn it upside down, like of the bottom inscription section, it actually says Sion. So the Priory of Sion, he thinks, had some sort of relevance to this whole thing. And he actually goes and interviews a guy in Paris at the time, I think back in 1974, a Parisian guy, and quite a high up. I can't remember his name. I'm not good with French names, but he was interviewing the guy, and he said, look, does the Priory of Sion still exist today? And the guy said, yes, it does. As we stand today, the Priory of Sion still exists. So Parson and Tenier, there is a huge connection between the two. They were actually part of the Priory of Sion. He only found that out in the third movie, that these guys, because they were the key, and they obviously in their paintings, they actually drew and painted certain things that had clues, like we said earlier. And they figured out in the paintings, the geometry that came out in the paintings is something called the pentagram or the pentacle, which is used in Satanism, but it's also used in white witchcraft, black magic, white magic. It's quite a prevalent.
And the pagan thing is all about protection. It's a protection symbol, but then it's got moved around a lot in all of the different esoteric symbolism, and it, some of it was bad, some of it was good, but initially it was good. I mean, it pops up in Christianity sometimes, but it's a pentacle, but the Satanists started using the pentagram. So a lot of controversy around the symbol, but yeah, it was mainly meant for protection.
Yeah, and then he actually figured out through the paintings that the area that they live in with Rennes-le-Chateau and the other three buildings, that actually, if you look at the mountaintops and the other buildings that are around, it actually makes a pentagram. When you go and do an aerial view of it, it's actually a pentagram.
Yes.
But from there, like with the pentagram and the interview, and we kind of realized the Priory of Sion is around, it's possible that the Priory were behind giving him money for a specific reason, maybe to buy the land, to keep the land, and for whatever reason is they needed that area. Because you're not allowed to go and do archaeology there currently. If you go there, they boot you off. It's like it's a non-digging site. You can't go and dig. Even when he was there, he actually said it's archaeologists are not allowed there. So here he starts bringing the Knights Templar into it, because apparently.
But the reason why he brings the Knights Templar, the original 9 Templars that went to King Solomon, that was in that temple.
Yeah.
They 5 of them, I think 5 of them were from the Prieure de Zion, the Prairie Design, Zion.
Yeah,
there was always in the documents. Always you could see Zion. So like 5 of those knights were from the Prairie Zion, and that's why they were sent there because there was something in that temple to find, to extract, and then they said the Knights Templar said that they were supposed to be an army to help the pilgrims cross to Israel to the Holy Land and the pilgrim, but they actually didn't do anything for the first 7 years.
9 years.
They did nothing. They were just it was 9 years.
Yeah,
9 years. There was only 7. It was 7 Templars, and it was 9 years.
So this is weird. So that's why there was 9 Templars. You're right. There's 9 Templars. They became known as the Knights Templar because they were given a section in Jerusalem that was above the Temple Mount, and that's why they became the Knights Templar, because they were their section was there at the Temple Mount. Now, for the first 9 years, no one knows what they did. It's like the history is almost dead of what was happening. But there was some leak, some stuff that came through that said the guys were digging under the stables and they were digging under the temple, and they obviously found something because their riches boomed. Yeah, they became so rich, dude. It was like unbelievable how rich these guys were.
Monks.
Yeah,
monk warrior knights. Because I mean, this first symbol of them is like 2 guys on a horse. Which means they didn't even have money for 2 horses. You have to share the horse. And they become the richest people on the planet on that stage.
Yeah, 100%. And they were obviously the first bankers.
Yeah, it's so funny because yeah, but it's funny because that symbol of them, the 2 guys on the horse. I mean, nowadays it could be like maybe they were 2 gay guys.
The woke agenda.
Well, lucky they went behind the horse. Lucky it wasn't 2 guys behind the horse. That would be even weirder.
So the woke movement actually started then. It was back then. Anyway, so yeah, now the Priory is all of a sudden involved. Yeah, the Knights Templar involved, Did Knights Templar find King Solomon's treasure? No one knows, because they found something, but no one actually knows what it was. And we know the story, what happened to them. We know that in France, they got taken out by King Philip, took them out. But there were knights that escaped. And there were knights that escaped prior, because they found out in this whole documentary that King Philip manipulated the Catholic nominations in such a way that he got somebody nominated as the Pope, somebody he wanted, somebody he could control.
Wasn't Louis the Pope? Wasn't the Pope named Louis?
No, I can't remember what the Pope's name was. But he then started controlling the Pope, because you must remember the Knights Templar were only answerable to the Pope, not to anybody else. The kings had no say, no one had say except for the Pope. And he managed to manipulate the Pope in such a way.
But he killed two of the popes before that pope. He poisoned the one and he got the other one killed, and then he nominated that pope so he could have control of what the pope did.
Yes, correct.
And
so he wanted the
he...
treasure. Yeah, he wanted the treasures or he wanted the money and the wealth that the knights had. But here's a story. So we know
he also owed them a lot of money.
Yeah, we owed him plenty of money. We know that from Bert's discussion with the Freemasonry, we know the story on how the Templars they were ambushed. Basically, they were ambushed. Yeah, they were all arrested, and they landed up getting tortured and persecuted and all the rest of it. But did you know that one of the Pope's cousin, was actually one of the knights, and he warned the cousin, and the cousin and them all escaped. There was a link to that money going with them out of there. So that's why this oak, the king, could never find the treasure, because these knights had already escaped with the money, or escaped with the wealth. Okay.
No,
so
and also,
yeah. So now the whole story now kind of comes to that's as far as it gets in the second chronicle, because now he's brought the knights in it. He's done his research. He's still unsure, because they're not sure whether it was the knights' treasure that he had found, or whether it was something else that he had found. And then he releases his next movie, and this is going back 1979. And that one was called Shadow of the Templars. Okay, but now this whole story takes another turn. So the Priory of Sion apparently originate, or have some sort of connection to the Merovingian bloodline. For those people that don't know the Merovingian bloodline, you might have heard it in The Matrix. They kind of talk a little bit about it, because it was actually a very powerful family. But apparently the Merovingians originates from some sort of serpent kings. They had long red hair, and apparently they had magical powers, and their powers derive from their hair, which is very similar to Samson in the Bible, if you think about it. Okay, because all of his power he had came from his hair. And these guys, all of them, had something very similar and something very weird. Between their shoulder blades, they had a red cross. It was a birthmark. And this is where the Knights Templar Red Cross comes from. It's also where the original Rosicrucians come from. Yeah. So now this whole thing takes another turn now, because...
But also, sorry, I just want to mention another interesting thing about the Merovingians, because in the book Early Blood and Holy Grail, because I also read the book after, well, actually I was reading the book, and then while I was reading the book, I thought, oh, fuck that, it's actually a documentary. Then after I read the book, I went and watched the documentary. But in the book, they said that the Merovingians, it started when this woman said that she got taken under the water and got raped by a sea creature, like a mermaid, dude. Okay. She got raped by a mermaid.
Yeah.
And that's and then she gave birth, and then that's where the bloodline came from. And then those babies, that bloodline, had special abilities of healing, of clairvoyance, all these super, like just as you mentioned now, and exactly that, and that's, so I just find it so interesting that it's like mermaid blood. It's like mermaid blood that's created that bloodline. And then also another thing is that when they found the skulls of the Merovingians, a lot of the time they had a hole drilled in them. You know this, we're going to do another whole freaking episode on this, dude, because like I've been researching this thing. It's because people do it nowadays to have altered states of consciousness. They drill a hole in their head and it like, puts you in this really altered stage of consciousness that like people, we all trying to seek in meditation and
Yeah.
and like that. So apparently, if you drill a hole in your pip,
Hey, no, let's not do that.
you can have
Let's not do that.
and it's like and it's a permanent state. It's called
Okay.
trepanning or trepanation or trepanning, and it's actually a thing that if you drill a hole in your head. And then also the thing is, in the olden days, they would think like, okay, no, that's the way that all our materialistic sciences are like, oh no. And when they found these skulls, they're like, oh no, it's just because they were so primitive, they didn't know how. They thought that there was like that was a sickness, and they were trying to extract the sickness from drilling a hole in their head. I mean, like there's no one was, like they went there, they just like make up all of this bullshit. We don't actually know what the thing is, but nowadays, if you drill a hole in your head, you'll have such an altered state of consciousness. I don't know exactly the scientific thing about it. Actually, I want to bring a lady on that's had the experience. I want to bring her on and we can talk about it.
She's got a hole in her head.
Well, she drilled a hole in her head, and she's got
What?
to get that experience.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a thing. Like people do it. It's like a thing you can go do it nowadays. Like, and they've banned it in some countries. Like they've banned it in like France and Australia because you can't just be drilling holes in your head. But apparently, it has such like medical benefits in terms of like mental health and stuff because it's like you're in a permanent like altered state of consciousness.
But
Like,
how
you
do you
don't go into the
prevent?
brain.
Yeah, how do you prevent like? Yeah, how do you prevent like going into the brain, or how do you prevent the like the?
But that's the thing, like, because I sent the lady an email to say, please come on the podcast. I want to hear what you're
Yeah.
gonna like. What
We'll probably get
Because
banned again from YouTube, like we were banned last time with Bart. Bart Sorrell's Planet X. We got banned from YouTube, guys, for that episode. Hey,
yeah, but like, I want to have it on the. I've sent an email. She hasn't replied to me, but like when I heard about the trepanation thing, I was like, "Fuck it, that sounds."
Jeez.
So anyway, so sorry, sidetracking so big time. But apparently the Merovingian skulls, when they found them, they would have holes drilled in their heads.
Yeah. So look, the Merovingian line originally called Merovac. That was their original name. It became Latinized to Merovingian. The Merovac was the first king, and they were Frankish kings, and he had a son called Childeric the First, and they apparently were awesome warriors, dude. These guys apparently stood out heads and shoulders, and I'm not talking about size. I'm talking about head and shoulders above people because these guys were fantastic. And they went up against the Romans and they clapped the Romans, dude. These oaks. They were really, really good. Childeric, he had a son called Clovis the First. And Clovis the First actually defeated, he joined Gaul. So I don't know if you remember, before France was France, it was actually Gaul. He got the people together and they defeated the Roman ruler, Sagarius. And he became the next Holy Roman Emperor, this guy, Clovis the First. Because the Catholic Church was so happy with him, and it stayed in the family for quite some time until Dagobert II came in. Now Dagobert II, he's the one that you talk about now that had this. That they found the skull with a hole in it. Something very special about this guy, but the Roman Catholics didn't like him because he was like totally against what they were saying. They did not like him, so they had him killed, and it was actually his godson that killed him. They say that his godson, they got rid of the godson as well. And the new guy that took over was a guy named Martel. His surname was Martel. And from him, his grandson was Charlemagne. And Charlemagne became the new emperor. And that's how it changed hands. So that's how the King Louis and all of them actually came from Charlemagne. So at this stage, they thought they had wiped out the Merovingian line. But there's stories to say that the godson had not been killed. The grandson, sorry, not the godson, the grandson had not been killed and had been moved. And his line is still alive today. But apparently there was some sort of, I don't know, he didn't get into it, but apparently there's some sort of descendancy from Christ somewhere along the line. I don't know. It didn't kind of get into it in the documentaries.
But I didn't get into the documentaries, but I'll get into it because he talks all about it in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the book.
Yeah. So how did he come about? Because these guys were known as serpent worshippers, the original Merovingians. They were known as serpent worshippers, which can be kind of found around the whole world. I mean, China were worshipping dragons and serpents. So were the guys in England. So, in India, serpents are quite big. So, yeah, how did Jesus come in about this thing?
He says that bloodline was the bloodline of Jesus. And he says that Jesus came out of that bloodline, right? And then and that's what the whole Holy Grail is.
Because the other thing is as well, the Holy Grail, according to these Akshay, is the skull that they found, one of the hole, which had a chalice they made for it. And apparently the Templars used to worship the skull in the chalice. And according to him, he was saying that this may have been the Holy Grail. Whatever the skull, whoever Dagobert, the second skull in this chalice was the Holy Grail. But then this is his kind of his thoughts. But then, like you were saying, there might have been a bloodline. The bloodline might have been the Holy Grail. So I don't know how Mary fits into it. I don't know how Joseph fits into it, because they must have all been some sort of descendant of. Because I mean, if you go back to Sumeria, you remember the gods Dagon. Dagon was that water god,
Yeah.
the half fish, half man. So we know from then, those times, there's always been some sort of mer people of some sorts that live in the water. If you're saying this woman was taken down and had a son from one of these things, then, and this is where the Merovingians came from. But I don't know how the Jesus thing came in. I don't know how that kind of links up.
He says that there's all this evidence, and he goes into like a lot of the biblical text. He goes into a lot of the New Testament, how the description of like how the crucifixion took place, right? And he says that, and from all the research they did, that it was actually staged. And he says that in the book that he never went into it like to have a prejudice against, like he wasn't against Christianity, he wasn't with Christianity, he wasn't like trying to find a purpose that this is what they were trying to get out of it or anything. He went in with like totally open-minded and just found the facts, and this is what he came to a conclusion of out of all of his research, and it all stems back from that priest old Sonia, that what they're trying to hide was that the crucifixion never took place, and that Jesus never died on the cross, that he carried on living. And then he goes into a whole thing of Mary Magdalene and how important Magdalene was, and like that Jesus did have a wife, Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And what's so funny, what made so sense to me, he was saying, that Jesus was Jewish, right? And like a Jewish person at his age, like firstly, if you did not get married, like a male, because you have a bar mitzvah when you're 13 in Judaism, so that's when you're a man, and then your father's already looking for you to marry somebody at that age, and then you marry somebody, and you have kids like immediately, and if you don't have kids, it's almost like akin to murdering somebody. Like it's like, how some people like think of abortion as like so bad, it's like you're murdering a kid. In those days, if you didn't have a kid, it was like murder. It was like if you don't have a kid, you're like a murderer. You know what I mean? So never mind like having an abortion. It's like if you're not even just doing the deed and getting a girl pregnant, you're bad, you're murder. So now, Jesus being Jewish and like at that age, like not having a wife and not having kids, he must have been the gayest dude on the block. You know what I mean? And I've been reading the Bible just because I'm so interested to see what it is. And then I've got through that whole part of Leviticus or whatever, where they're talking about all the sins, and like how to what animals you got to sacrifice for what sins so you can redeem your sins, and like how to put the blood on the tabernacle. And there's a whole chapter to this. And like if you are gay, you get murdered. They'll murder you, bro. And I mean, that's why it's so controversial, the Bible, because like they say some crazy shit in there like that, man. Like it's like insane. So, and that's the Old Testament though. But so I mean, if Jesus was not married and he was not like having kids or something, dude, he would be. He's a very strange dude. He's the strangest guy on the block there. He's a fucking weirdo, bro. I don't think the whole town's not going to be like. He's going to be thought very strange. So that's what I found very interesting when he said that, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So anyway, so then there's this whole thing about Mary Magdalene, and then the whole thing about the crucifix, like he was saying that like they say it's around John's place, and I mean, there's all these cryptic things of how he analyzes it, but basically he says that John and them on John's property, they like staged the whole crucifixion. Also, there's weird things like the like I can't remember who says which, but like in the one gospel, he says that he was on the cross for 3 hours after I forgot a certain part of the day. Like it was 3 hours after that he dies. Then in the other gospel, he says no, he was on the cross for 6 hours and he died. And then the third one, it says no, he was on the cross for 9 hours and he died. But when people were crucified in those days, they were on the cross for up to a week before they died, because they actually basically suffocate on the cross.
Yeah.
Because like your arms are up and your legs
down.
Pull your body down if you're not nailed properly, and you actually suffocate. That's the way you die on the cross, because it's so crucifying, because it's like it's the suffering so intense. That's why it's so hectic. The worst way to die. That's what it's called, But Jesus was only on there for 3, 6, or 9 hours between those gospels. Like you don't know, okay, which one's the real one, because. And it took a week usually. And also sometimes when the Romans, when they had mercy on the person, they would break the person's legs so that they would suffocate quicker. So Jesus' legs didn't get broken. And that's also another whole thing of all this other, but there's a whole thing about the Jesus' legs not getting broken. But so they didn't break his legs. Also, another thing was that they gave him vinegar before he went up there. Like they had a sponge and they said he was saying he was so thirsty, so they gave him vinegar on the cross. And that's also in the Gospels, like a whole bunch of stuff like that. But then some people say that no, the vinegar is because it makes you dehydrated quicker and then it'll kill you quicker. The other people say that no, it's like if you pass out and you put vinegar under someone's nose or whatever, then they suddenly wake up, because it's like it gives them this rejuvenating kind of effect. But he was saying in this Holy Grail is that it was like some kind of poison. But not a poison. It's like a poison that makes your heart stop for like you go into a bit of a coma for like a few hours, and you can get a remedy afterwards to revitalize. So it appears like you're dead. So you take the substance. So he says that they put the substance and they gave it to him, so he looked like he died.
Yeah.
And that's when they pierced his lung or whatever. And then he also goes into a whole thing about the Essenes, because there's a lot of also like a speculation that he was an Essene. And he came from the Essenes, which the Essenes this is actually where the connection of the bloodline comes in. The Essenes in those days were the people with the highest healing abilities. They were healers. And he talks about like how it was a group of people that had this very highly spiritual belief system that was kind of in line with the Old Testament, but it was a bit different. There was a bit of a different thing. It was a lot more like mysticism and a lot more of like Gnostic belief, like of actually feeling the being one with God, actually having the gnosis of God, instead of having it being like a theoretical thing that the whole Bible is like written down and you learn it like that. You can actually have experience of knowing God. So they had that belief system, and they were highly powerful healers because they came from the Merovingian bloodline. So they had that bloodline, and that's why they could have these abilities of healing and stuff. It was funny because then he starts also going into this whole thing of how they looked. They always wore white clothes and stuff. So when he gets taken away off the cross, he goes into this tomb, which is on John's property or whatever. And also because he was in a scene, obviously there was a lot of healers that would help him. Like they had like people that it's like the doctors in those days, and they helped him heal in that tomb, to so he could be better. But the thing is that apparently, to his research, that he says that it was also speculation, obviously, that he thinks that he never died. It was all a staged thing, and it was and he came out of there, and he had a wife, Mary Magdalene, and that bloodline has continued. And that's what the big secret is. And also he goes into like the whole proper, like how the time, political structure at that time, and how they needed to change the religion, and they had to have this catalyst of the guy dying on the cross so they could flip the whole political system and bring in this new religion, this new way of thinking and everything. And this was the way to do it. So they staged the whole thing to bring in this new thing of Jesus. And the thing is that he doesn't say that he didn't have this like magical powers or like walking on water or anything, because he probably did if he was an Merovingian, and he probably had very extremely good healing powers in that. But he says that the crucifixion was just a stage thing because of all the prophecies in the Old Testament, that it had to have that thing to make it all connect, so they could actually bring this new religion into being. And that it was a political structure, a political like thing, like maybe how politics work today. They need like some kind of thing to make their thing work. So I'm a bit all over the place now, but so Jesus didn't die on the cross. The bloodline continued, and that's also what is so interesting about the French word Saint Grail, which means Holy Grail. But Sang Royal in French means royal blood. That's where the Holy Grail thing, because it's been translated into English. People have got it confused with Holy Grail when it actually means royal blood. So instead of Saint Grail, it's Sangreal. It's the royal blood.
This is when Dan Brown had his idea for that movie, that idea about.
And it's also interesting because like then Dan Brown, he made the Davinci Code book after reading, these guys, because I mean Holy Blood, Holy Grail is actually written by three guys. It was Michael Bergent, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln. And then Dan Brown read that book. He wrote the Vinci Code, and then he got taken to court because he said that these guys said no, they stole their idea, their intellectual property, made his book, which is kind of funny because I mean, if they're trying to state facts and it's a facts, then what did Dan Brown steal the facts? I mean, how do you make an intellectual property out of facts? Well, they think it's facts. It might, some of it's obviously speculation, but so he got taken to court, which I thought was quite interesting. That was the birth of the Vinci Code.
Again, I think this whole Dan Brown story and the whole thing, how it fits together, is actually so cool. It's a pity though that they had lost the two documents, so they couldn't really find out what was really going on. So it's a lot of speculation as to what actually the secret is. Is it the secret that it's a treasure that was hidden? Is it a secret that perhaps it's a bloodline that's been hidden? Is it a secret of something else? Is it some sort of magical secret?
You say, but you know what's that in the painting, the Shepherds of Acadia one, is that tomb that was on that. It's quite close distance from Rennes Chateau. It's on this other French guy's farm, and after that movie, he got so pissed off with people coming over to look at that tomb, and also people started to try to dig under it and everything. He just destroyed it. So that tomb's gone. He took it out. He destroyed it. But it's just so frustrating, like how cryptic it is, and like all the things, and because sometimes when Henry Lincoln's like going on how he cracked the one code or something, it's just like I look at it and I'm like, dude, that's the fucking craziest way I've ever seen someone crack a code. I mean, how did you even come up with it? It's just like it seemed like you saw that one thing with the chessboard.
Yeah.
They put all the words on the chessboard, and then they used the knight to like go around the chessboard and pick out the different letters and then put a sentence together. I'm like, dude, you can fucking do that with anything. Why like you could like that's just like I mean, it just seems like the craziest way to like go about cracking something. I mean, it just sounds like they just make up the stuff.
But also they're trying to crack a code today for people's how they were thinking in those days. They could have been completely different ideas about why they put a cipher and how they put the cipher. Now they've got a computer that's thinking in today's, because you must remember the computers, everything's on internet and it picks up things from internet and, from online and whatever.
Yeah, well, he did say they did use a computer to do that. But the thing is that it's so cryptic, and it's like, it's so frustrating because like, what is the truth and what did it really mean? But you can't really know because the two papers, those two parses or whatever are missing. The two main pages are missing. But then the prior of Zion, Zion or whatever, it's interesting is that they tried to find out if this is a real order, like Henry Lincoln, and he actually found documents, and he actually found that it was a real, absolutely real, like secret society, whatever you want to call it. And the people that were initiated into it, there was Leonardo da Vinci.
Isaac Newton was in there as well.
Isaac was also initiated because he found the whole the whole lineage. And then there was obviously a whole lot of other guys that, I mean, I'm too stupid to know who those people were, but very important people. But I remember the Isaac Newton came up and Leonardo da Vinci, and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then with the the first, when he found out where it first came from, the group of them, 13 of them were Rosicrucians. Did you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Like the 13 of the main people were actually Rosicrucians. And I thought, like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then because there's this whole speculation of what happened to the prayer design. Did it just disintegrate? Is it a real thing? Like, because like all of these things that were real, like you wonder, oh, is it just people that have just gone on the internet or been studying their whole lives and they make an organization? It's not the real thing, but it's just a name. They give it a name because they know quite a lot about it. Like the Hermetic, the Golden Dawn, what's it? The Aleister Crowley was part of the Golden Dawn or whatever.
Proud, yeah.
And I mean, that was quite a, phenomenal kind of like esoteric organization in those days. It was like meant to hold all the real knowledge or whatever, but then something happened to everybody in the ground or whatever. But now all of these Golden Dawn like societies have popped up everywhere, but you don't know which is the real one because there's all these people that just call themselves the Golden Dawn and it's just a load of shit. Also, like, when I also went into the Rosicrucians, when I became a Rosicrucian, I also was like wondering, I was like, Jesus, is this the real one? Like, I mean, have we joined the real one, or is this a nonsensical one that someone just made up? But I found out that when I did, research and also being a part of it for a while, found out, okay, this is the real one. Luckily, we are, because there are some other people calling themselves Rosicrucians, but we the ancient mystical order of the Rosicrucians, which is the original one.
Yeah,
got the original knowledge from it, but. So when Henry Lincoln went on his research with the prayer de Zion, he found that one guy, and they actually interviewed him on the documentary.
Yeah, that's
the
what
French
I was talking
guy.
about. Yeah,
and he was like, no, that's we've and he kept on asking him all these questions, and he said, no, I can't comment on that. I can't comment on that. I can't comment on that. But then he did say that there's just certain information, and there's a timeline, and they're working to start revealing certain things, and then to get to this pinnacle point, and they've got a whole timeline of when it's going to happen, and they said they're on course. So I'm thinking, fuck, that's so interesting, because if it's real, like, what are they building up to? What is going to be revealed to us? Like, I'm like, fuck, dude, this is like, or maybe the guy's just full of shit, and he just wouldn't be on TV. But then what there was, and then also about that the pentagram, the pentacle, which I found was so interesting, is that it was showing this thing of Saturn, like how Saturn goes around the sun. How, sorry, it's not Venus. Thanks.
Yeah, Venus.
For correcting me there. Venus. How Venus goes around the sun, and it makes a pentacle.
Yeah, it's every.
And I was thinking, like, yeah, I was thinking, how the fuck does that work? Because it doesn't explain it very well in the documentary. So I went on and I found this really cool YouTube video about it, and it shows that every single time the Earth and Venus line up directly with the sun. So Venus is here and Earth, and then so every time it lines up, it takes like 8 years to do that. And if you mark from each time, like the first time it does it to the second time, the third time, fourth, fifth, and you draw a line from each part of where it does that, when it goes around the sun, it makes a pentacle.
Yeah.
A perfect pentacle. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that blew my mind when I saw that.
Yeah, that's also because people in those days, he actually mentioned why people weren't getting the connections properly, because people nowadays are trying to look at it where the sun is the center of the universe. And they were trying to work out everything around that, where in those days, they didn't think like that. They thought that the earth was the center. So when you look at it at a different view, it then works out, the ciphers and everything work out, because they thought in those days that the earth was the center. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, at the end of the day, the whole documentary didn't really come to conclusion. There's a whole lot of theories out there as to what the secret really is, but we'll have to find out. But it was interesting. It was an interesting little path that we took there. So yeah.
Because I was reading the book, and then when I heard that it was from this documentaries, I went, oh, I better go watch the documentary. So then I watched the documentaries and it didn't really come to any conclusion. I was like, okay, it was very interesting, but like, what the fuck? Where does it leave us now? This has just made me more confused. But at least in the book, he comes and he starts talking about it, and at the end, he says it was all about the crucifixion was like faked, and the bloodline of Jesus still remains today, and that's what everyone is keeping the big secret about. So maybe that's what the prayer of Zion is going to reveal to us in the timeline. Maybe they're going to say, like, actually, here's the
The
great,
actual,
great sound of Jesus, and like the crucifixion is not real, and he has all the evidence, but Jesus was a real person, but he never got crucified. I mean, that would be fucking something, dude. If that
but hold on,
came
hold on.
out, hey?
Wait, hold on. So if this documentary or this kind of line of thought is going on, that it's going to be maybe, let's say, the son of Jesus, the lineage, the Merovingian line, the son of Jesus, would be the new Messiah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be far-fetched to think that, because they think Jesus is coming back. The Christians in it, they think now it's Jesus, but maybe it's
That's
not Jesus. It's
maybe
the
that's what
line.
it
It's the
means.
line that's coming back, and
Yeah.
he's going to be
And
revealed as
also
the son of Jesus.
because also what was so interesting was that, like, in the Old Testament, it makes a point. I don't know if I think it's like 36 times, or like or maybe it's more, like 300. I can't remember, but there's a lot of times they make a point that there's going to be a Messiah. And that's also, remember when we did the podcast of the case of Christ in his book. He showed all of the points that the Old Testament said, this is what the Messiah is going to do. This is what, and Jesus matched all of them. He like ticked the box on every single one, which what I was also, when I read that book, I was like, okay, well, how come Jewish people, they don't think he's the Son of God or the Messiah as they predicted it in the Old Testament, because he ticks every single box, which also leads me to believe that maybe from reading Holy Grail, Holy Blood, is that it was all staged to make it look like that. So when the crucifixion came, they could get the new religion into power. Because it is, I mean, geez, the whole calendar's based on it. I mean, it did, at the end of the day, the Christianity did kind of win, because it's like, that's what, geez, we just lost all our Jewish and Muslim listeners there. But
Well, it's
and
not,
the
well, not really.
Christians,
This is
all
just
of them,
theory. We're just hypothesizing.
it's
There.
all there. This is
Just hypothesizing. So
so so
what are we looking
but
for?
then
What are we
also the
looking
thing
for then, William?
with,
So what are we looking
with
for?
Islam. So Islam says that this Messiah is still coming.
Yes.
Judaism says this Messiah is still coming, and Christianity says Jesus is coming back. So maybe that's
So all
when
three are talking the
prayer
truth.
design. So when prayer design, it reveals, here we go. Here's the bloodline of Jesus. This is the Merovingian line.
Here's the real king.
The French, the rulers. It's gonna be fucking insane, dude. And it's all gonna be like prophesied and all come true. It'll all be true. It'll be like, there we go. It's all come around, and then maybe that's the real end of the world, because our whole belief system would be fucking uprooted again, or like everything. I don't know. It'll be quite profound. I hope something like that does happen, and I'm around. It'll be fucking awesome.
Yeah, because you must remember,
I think it'll be just as interesting as if like the aliens came down and just revealed themselves to us and said, like, okay, well, the comments about it, get on the spaceships, let's get the fuck out of here. I don't know which will be more exciting to you. Maybe I think the aliens will be more exciting.
Well, I think it's going to coincide. So obviously, we've been talking about this Operation Bluebeam for some time. This fake alien invasion, possibly a real alien invasion. We don't know, but there's something coming. And perhaps there's going to be, at the same time, there's going to be a revelation that the Messiah is coming. The Messiah is going to lead the charge against the fake alien. I don't know. Something's coming. Something's coming, dude. And we've got to watch out, because this world as it is just stuffed. Everything that's happening in this world is just turned upside down. So, and I think that it kind of shows end of days. It shows, and even with Bibu's thing from last week, it's showing something's coming to a head. Something's coming. So I think it's going to be very interesting times coming up soon.
And also, what is that quote by that one person? I can't remember. One philosopher, he said, "Every man secretly desires for the world to end." Now, fucking killed that. I mean,
every man secretly desires for really. I don't want it to end, because I mean, I'm kind of enjoying life, but I wouldn't mind seeing change, because currently everything's just balls up. And I mean, it's not going well. But anyway, I think that's it, man. Will,
Yeah.
we can finish it off there. All right, cool, guys. Thanks again, Will. Thanks for your time. We'll chat next week. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.